If trying to get your kids to listen ends up with you doing a whole lot of yelling, it's probably because your initial approach in trying to tell them what it is that you wanted them to do came across as lacking confidence. So it read more like a suggestion rather than an instruction. And by the time you tried to get ahead of all of that, you were just frustrated. And so then yelling is the thing. So in this video, we'll talk about how to get your kids to listen to you without all of the yelling. Now, we're doing real talk here, and I will be the first to admit that I have yelled. I've yelled several times to my teenagers, at my teenagers. And I did a whole video on how I've had to learn to talk with them so that they will hear me and I will hear them, so that the conversations are more productive and peaceful and we maintain our connection rather than they think I'm just some crazy chick that explodes periodically. So I can link that in the description. I really want to talk about talking with younger children because yeah, it's for me that was my sweet spot. I can talk to a kid and get them, well, especially my child, and get that child to listen. And probably a lot of that is the techniques I used as a pediatrician to talk with kids. Sometimes I'm just meeting for the first time and they have anxiety about seeing the doctor and yada yada yada, and I'm getting to know them, and so there's a way, right? But um, those are some of the same techniques that you can use in just talking to your own child that actually help set the stage for you to end up doing less yelling when they're teens. I'm not going to say you're not going to yell because I've already told you I've yelled, but you would have established the kind of connection with your child by that point that it's not yelling all the time. It's, you are having a difference of opinion about something that's really major to them, and that's where the yelling comes in. So let's get back to talking with your kids, your younger kids. Um, Here's the first thing I'm going to suggest. Everything should start with connection. So, in order to have a child trust you and value and honor what you say, there should be a healthy connection between you and them. They should know mom loves them, mom uh, would do anything for them, that you are doing the best you can for them, that there's nothing that's good for them that you'd keep from them. They should know that you love them. And they should know it because of the time that you give them. We're talking about young children now, setting the stage. The time that you set aside for them, that is for them. Not like you're on the phone scrolling and listening to the rundown about the day at camp or the day at daycare or whatever, but that you actually are looking at them and looking them in the eye, and your facial expressions and your commentary let them know that you are in it. You're in the story with them and you are responding. That goes a long way in giving you credibility, giving you rights that are beyond just the fact that I'm your mom and you should listen to me, but it's I'm your mom and I've sat and I've listened to you and I've given you my time and I've read stories with you and to you, and I make time for you. And so when I tell you to do X, Y, and Z, there is something there where they have they have a reason of their own, not just because you told them, but in themselves, they're like, yeah, I do that for mom because it's mom and mom loves me. They're not saying that because they're young, but that's what's going on in their minds that makes it more likely for them to respond to your instruction when you give them an instruction. So we want to start with connecting. The second thing we want to think about is how we are giving the instruction. Now, I know the people love gentle parenting. I know. And I know what it sounds like it means, and then I also know what it ends up looking like in practice, but I'm putting all those labels aside and I'm talking about part A is giving the instruction with confidence, which means when you're going to say it, you mean what you're saying. It is not a suggestion. It is what you want them to do, and it's what you want them to do the first time you say it. This has to start way back when they're toddlers, when they first are understanding language, they should know that when mommy says don't touch, she actually means don't touch. So when my children were one and it's the whole thing with the stove and I say don't touch, I said it, but I was also close enough to take their hand and move it away from the stove. So there's two sensory things going on here. You have heard me and you have felt the action that goes with what I'm saying so that you understand that's what I want you to do. And if they were to put it back, then I do it again. And I'm confident, number one, that I am wanting this to happen and it's not a suggestion. And the confidence also shows up in how I say it. Now, we're talking about not yelling. And so you're not going to yell it. You're going to say it in speaking voice, the way I'm talking to you now, but it's going to be firm. So I don't know if people consider firm to not be gentle, but a firm voice communicates to the child that, oh no, this is not the mommy that read me the story. There's different levels to mommy. There's mommy that reads me the story. There's mommy that listens to me when I tell her a story. And then there's mommy who has a very different tone when she's giving me an instruction. And when I hear that tone, I understand, oh, she's not playing. She wants me to do it. So the difference is, don't touch the stove, okay? That sounds like a suggestion. And it also sounds like someone who is just hoping that you will do what they say, as opposed to, don't touch the stove. There's a difference. And the child who is looking at you after you give those two different types of instructions, the same instruction two different ways, they can interpret which one is serious and which one is not. And they will try you and they will test you by doing it again to see if you really mean what you're saying, especially if you said it the first way. More than likely, if you said it the second way, they're gonna, oh, that's different. It's a lot of processing going on that they don't have words for. But yes, they are processing. And oh, that's a different sound. She doesn't normally say it like that. Okay. And so maybe, depending on the personality and temperament of the child, so those are also coming into play. They may do the thing again just to see, is she going to sound that way again? And so then the confidence part comes in, is that you do it, you give that same energy, that same energy. Don't touch that. Now, if the second time you're close enough and you need to remove it or remove their hand, if you want to, I mean, and depending on the level of danger of the thing or the level of preciousness of the thing that you're trying to keep their hands off of, you can do that. But ideally, what you want is a child to respond to your voice, because there will be times that you are in a store or you are in a place where danger abounds potentially for this small child, and you may not be able to touch them or put your hand to them for some reason. They should, your voice should be enough for them to respond in the way that you are instructing them to move. Um, the ideal is that your voice is enough, but there are all different types of learning styles, and some people need to be touched while they hear in order to reinforce what it is that you're wanting from them, and for them to feel, oh, okay, I really should do this. And of course, the touch would be a gentle touch because you're instructing. There's correction where something might have to be more rapid because it's dangerous, but if we're talking about instruction, you can give the instruction verbally, and if you need to, you also put your hand to guide them either towards or away from whatever it is that you're saying to them verbally. So we always want to start from a place of connection. We always want to approach it with confidence, and you just, as much as possible, you want to be calm. And I know we're talking about the fact that you're watching this video because you've been doing a lot of yelling, and you're like, Dr. Vanessa, I've been yelling, so why are you talking to me about being calm? What will help you to be calm is the confidence part. That's why the confidence piece is very important. Um, that is why you will be more likely to be able to stay calm. which you need because you're going to have to be repetitive in some instances and repetitive at this same tone. Now, what might have been happening for you before is number one, you weren't confident, and maybe you don't have the level of connection with your child that you would like. That's always something that's something you're always building. That's your whole life as a parent. You're working on your connection with your child. So, no shade. If you're enjoying the content, this would be a great time to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Okay, let's get back to the video. But if you have struggled with confidence, whether it's because you have had the experience of growing up with a mom who was not very present, not very attentive, not very affectionate, not very nurturing, um, maybe hostile, maybe angry, and so you don't trust yourself because you know what you've been exposed to, and so you feel like anything above a whisper to you sounds loud or to you sounds mean. And so you have been sort of apologetically asking your child to do something. And if you're asking, it's not an instruction. And so they don't have to do it because it's really more of a request or a suggestion. And so it really doesn't make sense for you to be getting angry and yelling. So if that's what's been happening, that's probably why you got to the yelling part, is you came across as apologetic or lacking confidence or lacking clarity, because instead of just saying directly what you want, you're going around and around and you're trying so hard to say it in a nice way, um, because you don't want them to cry or you don't want them to be sad. Or disappointment is a part of life for everyone. Disappointment from the time you come out of the womb and you realize it is cold out here, what is happening, and you are yelling. You are disappointed that you are not in the warmth that you have been in cooking for 9 months. And what is this? And someone has to come and comfort you. Disappointment is a part of life. Teaching your child how to manage disappointment is a part of your job as moms, as parents, is to help your child manage that disappointment. So it's not our job to try to keep them from being disappointed, to try to keep them from ever crying, to try to keep them from ever being mad. Part of it, because all these things will happen in their life, throughout their life, part of it is to teach them how to manage these big emotions that they're feeling. So we're not parenting trying to avoid their emotions. We are parenting trying to keep our peace. And so we want to be clear, but we also want to be concise, and we want to be confident. They don't need, a young child does not need a whole lot of explanation for why you want them to do what you want them to do. The instruction should be the instruction. If you have a child who's like my nephew, I have a grand nephew who I just came back from visiting. Took my family to visit my family in Florida, and we spent time with him. And he is very much a child that if you give him the instruction, he's going to come back with a very eloquent follow up about that. That really essentially means why, but there's so many more words to it. Very eloquent child for a 5-year-old, and you have to be ready for that. But the initial conversation is not me asking him to do it. It's me telling him to do it, and then he can come back and ask me why, and then I'll give him an explanation, a brief one that will end with me repeating the instruction of what I want him to do. And there's a point where, depending on how old your child is that we're dealing with, that is not yet a teen, that's what we're talking about here. There are questions that are actually questions because they want to know the answer, and then there's just questioning where they will just keep saying why or keep finding a reason just because they don't want to do it, and they're trying to wear you out so that you will yell, you will do it yourself, what have you. We're not getting into that. You get one time to ask a clarifying question about what's the importance of why, and that's only if what I'm telling you to do does not need your immediate action. If it needs their immediate action, I do not engage in explanation. You need to just repeat the action, and you need to repeat it with a firm voice, a firm tone, and you need to look them in the eye and hold their gaze. And so that they understand that she's actually not going to change her mind. She said what she said. She said it again. And she's still sitting here staring at me, waiting for me to do it. Most times, that'll get them to move. If it doesn't, then you need to immediately give them a choice that involves them doing what you told them to do or a consequence. I've talked about this before. I have strong willed children. Two of my three are pretty strong willed in very different ways. And it's the case with strong willed children or just confident children, right? Maybe your child is more confident than you are. And so then you have to develop your confidence. But at any rate, um, they need a choice. They don't simply just want to do what you told them to do. It has to come down between them choosing to do what you said or choosing something that you know they would not want. Now, let me say this and be very clear that when you do that, you must mean it, which means if they choose to not listen, that means they have chosen to go without whatever the other option was. So if the instruction is put away your toys or you don't get to play outside, or put away your toys or you stay inside the rest of the day without them. Maybe they normally go outside and they had plans to go with a friend, and it's put away your toys or there's no going outside with so and so. Now, if they come back with, I don't want to put away these toys. Oh, wow, that's unfortunate. But you won't be going outside with your friend. And I guess while you're inside, you'll just end up putting away your toys. And that's exactly what should happen. Because here's probably the other reason you might end up yelling is because when you have provided a consequence for them not following through with what you said, you never followed through yourself. And so they know that you're just talking. If it comes across to your kids as you're just yapping, then you're going to end up yelling. If they know that when you speak, you say what you mean and you mean what you say as much as possible, then they learn very quickly and over time. Even if they want to be defiant, they pick their battles because they have come to know and they have come to have experience with you that when you say something, you mean it. And so it can't be every day, all day, they're talking about no or they're slow to move. They understand for them to have a quality of life that they enjoy, they need to go ahead and do what you said the first time. And again, I'm assuming that we're having this conversation when you're saying you're giving an instruction and it ends up that you're yelling, you're not nitpicking their entire day. Like your kids have freedom to move and, there's a routine that's set up in your house and they generally know that what they can do at what time. And so these are, particular instances when maybe this is out of the routine, the instruction that you're giving or, what have you. It's just something that they weren't expecting or it's a topic that that they don't particularly like. And so whenever we touch on this topic, it's like going around the same mountain again, and it's just all of this, yeah, and your blood pressure is going up. And so you be prepared because you already know that that's what this conversation does. Maybe your child doesn't like doing homework, and every day it's like, oh my gosh, this is summer now, but school, or maybe you do homeschooling, you're still schooling them, whatever the case, and it's like, okay, did you do your homework? I don't want to do my homework. Then that's when you have a ready, we just jump right to it's this or that. Which one do you want? Do you want to do your homework and get it over with and then have this, or do you not want to have that? And they're back to a choice, and it's up to them now. It's not you making them do something, it's something they have chosen. And whatever they have chosen, you need to come behind and support. Yeah, you've chosen the consequence. I'm here to give it to you. You've chosen to do what I said. Wonderful. Appreciate it. Love it. And yeah, when they do, that's another point. When they do actually do what you say, especially when they're younger. This is something I did when my children were 1-year-old, 2-year-old. When they did exactly what I would say, Good job. I really appreciate that. You're such a good boy. You're such a good girl. Good for you listening to mommy. Say those things because kids in general, right, want to please their parents. They do. They recognize that you're the ones who take care of them, that you're the one who loves them, and they want to please you. And so when you let them know that them listening to you pleases you, they're more likely to do that. Yes, the older they get and the more they want to test boundaries and the more they want to exert their own autonomy, that's when you have pushback. But you have to have a groundwork at some point where you were able to tell them to do something and they did it and they felt good about doing it. And so that's something that you start early. But I don't know how old your child is when you're watching this, but if it's something now where it's been a minute and you were trying it another way and that wasn't working and you're feeling at your wit's end, you don't know what to do, start today. Start today. Yes, it will take a little more time to right the ship because you've been going a certain way for however long. And so you have to give it time for them to adjust to a new normal. So it's going to require a lot of you that you probably have not been giving so far because, we have a lot going on as moms and we want as many things to be as easy as possible because this whole motherhood thing is hard. Hey there, just interrupting your video to let you know about something else you'll probably be interested in. Because as a mom, you know that there is no such thing as a lot of free time. You are moving nonstop from the time you get up to the time your head hits the pillow. And if you're like me, you can use some hacks to help you do what you do a whole lot easier in a lot less time. So, if you look in the description below, you'll find the link to 15 hacks that I'm happy to share with you that will get you your time and your sanity back. Okay, let's get back to the video. So we're trying to take our easy wins where we can. And sometimes when that has failed us and we have to now press in and give more firmness than we have been, that can be exhausting because we have to be consistent on top of everything else that we have been doing and are called on to do. But we do it, and I encourage you to do it because you're always thinking with the end in mind. It's not really just about them needing to listen to you. Listening is a skill they need in life. They will need to listen to other authorities in their lives, and more so because we're talking about a parent as being somebody in authority in their life, they need to be able to develop the skill so that when their boss tells them to do something, they do it. There should not be, unless what the boss is asking them to do is unethical or or actually impossible or outside of their job description, like way outside, and it's you know, I don't even know what you're asking me. Then you have more questions and you follow up. But they have to learn how to be able to do something when told the first time. They need to learn that in school. If you're having, you have a teacher with 30 kids, 35 kids, she does not need to have to keep saying things over and over. And you and I help her, him or her, by sending our children to school ready, with ready ears, that when they hear an instruction, they know that different from a suggestion, and they understand that the person who's giving me this instruction is responsible for me and cares about me. We have a rapport, we have a good relationship, and so when the tone changes, I need to adjust accordingly, and I need to respond, and I need to respond quickly, or there's likely some consequence that will arise. I'm sure that has helped you. If it has, I would love to hear how in the comments. What are you going to try that maybe you haven't tried before? Or have you figured out what may have been the problem that caused you to get in a cycle of yelling in your home? I'd love to hear about that in the comments, as well as any other questions you may have. And until next time, please remember, when it comes to you being the mother of your children, you are the woman for the job. Take care.